Hello, welcome back to the Bad Pipes podcast. I'm so sleepy, but my name is Andrew. With me today is Scott Kelly.
I'm here.
We're both here. This week, we thought it would be a good idea to kind of building off of last week, talking about Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, to watch another one of his kind of like iconically Zack Snyder movies, without delving into the DC stuff. So we ended up watching Sucker Punch, which came out in 2011.
Yeah. Our graduating year.
Oh god. Oh god.
Now True. 13 years ago, essentially.
Jesus. Yeah, basically. Coming up on it. Just a few months. Quick question.
Yes.
Did you watch the original version of this, the PG-13, or did you watch the R version?
I did find the extended R-rated version.
All right, so we both went with the meme and watched the Zack Snyder extended cut.
Yes, we did.
Of Sucker Punch, and this is your first time watching it, right?
Yes. So, my little sister was like super into this way back. I don't know why. I just remember her watching it a bunch, and I never really sat down and watched it, but I do recall my little sister being super into it. But yes, this is like probably my first time like actually sitting down and paying attention and watching it.
Well, your little sister is pretty edgy, and this movie does kind of appeal to the super edgy crowd.
Yeah, that is her. Yeah, she is. She aims to be edgy.
Yeah, I mean, what other movie could you say, like, there's a mob story, a mafia kind of story. There's a, like, family drama going on. There are samurai, orcs, dragons, World War I, zeppelins, planes, and trenches.
Yeah.
Like...
Also, like, mental instability in an insane asylum.
Fucking... castle. There's fucking everything in this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot going
on. So when this movie came out, received generally negative reviews, grossed 89, basically 90 million against its budget of 82 million. So objectively a flop.
Yeah. It looks like it's currently sitting at a 22% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 47% from audience. Not great.
No, not great. And that's why I'm interested to hear your perspective. Interested to hear your perspective on it, having watched this for the first time.
Yeah. So I did enjoy it. I mean, you come into it and it's we pretty much get like a very definitely a very edgy intro into this movie with just like some, I mean, the whole movie is scattered with like these like emo covers of pretty popular songs.
Well, it's also got like Bjork is in there, so it's these kind of
yeah.
I mean, the soundtrack's good, I think.
No, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, very interesting covers of songs in there, but no, I mean our main character, baby doll, her mother dies. Her stepfather looks like he's abusive, probably. It almost appears, I don't think it's ever explicitly, a lot of stuff isn't explicitly stated in this, but it almost looks like he planned her death potentially in order to get, inheritance from the will, but then opens the will and finds it's, the mother has left things to her two daughters, baby doll and her little sister. Yeah, and then he goes to like he goes to abuse them. He goes to abuse the little sister, and she pulls a gun on him and ends up shooting and killing her little sister. And then she's dragged to the asylum, and that's where this all kind of goes down.
Yeah, it's very sort of like American Gothic to begin with. I would probably describe that section.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of like Lemony Snicket vibes too. Like parents are dead. You've got like orphan kid kind of thrust into a world that's like beyond them, basically. You know.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a hell of a ride.
Even though that is kind of the opening of the movie, that's actually not the first scene. The first scene is a stage, and the curtains open up.
Oh, yes. Yep, the curtains, so you get the stage of the curtains open up to her sitting on the bed.
It's actually not her. It is the actress that plays Sweet Pea with that blonde wig on.
That's right, yep. Because Sweet Pea is our narrator, from what I understand. Sweet Pea is the one speaking to us.
Yeah, she does
from
have
the
that
beginning
opening monologue
and narrating.
Which is interesting because you have all of that going on, and then the end of that sequence is them coming up to the lobotomy scene, and then it switches back to the other narrative, which is Sweet Pea pulling off the wig and being like, "What the fuck is this?" You know, like. So yeah, there's like an unreliable narrator kind of thing going on, in that you don't know which story is the actual story. Like, is it Baby Doll's story or is it Sweet Pea's story? But it ends up, I think, exploring that in a pretty interesting way.
Yeah.
You saying that you enjoyed this, I find interesting, because A, I do think it's a pretty fun movie. B, I do think that the R version, the extended version, makes certain things a lot clearer than the original, like the theatric version did.
Yeah.
And I also feel like even originally the theatrical version was like a monumentally misunderstood movie.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. No, I can see that. There is I think that kind of goes back to they keep I feel like they just don't explicitly spell things out, which I think some people would find problems with because people have trouble with speculation or coming to their own conclusions. People, I think a lot of people are just dumb. So they're like, they can't watch this and go like, yeah, that checks out. That makes sense. So, yeah, no, I felt, I mean, even like when it came around to the end, I felt it tied things up pretty well.
Yeah.
And I felt like I came to a conclusion, to an understanding of what occurred. And like everything relating to the story. But yeah, I think they, throughout the entire movie, I felt they did a good job of the transitioning between like the transitioning, but also blurring the lines between like, hey, we're in this burlesque club, but it's also the asylum,
like a brothel, and all this other stuff. Yeah, so
that's where
as you're watching it, you're kind of listening for lines that would fit in both of those settings, right?
Yeah, and it's like, it's even with, you know, there's a lot of things that I feel like just watching, you know, like when they're in the burlesque club and they're talking about the cleaning closet that occasionally the orderly will lock them into, and like they open it up and it's got padded walls. It's like, okay, that's very clearly not a normal cleaning closet. That's very clearly like a safe room in an asylum. It's just like from her perspective within the burlesque club. That's like the cleaning supply closet. It also goes back to like when they're walking through the burlesque club and there's just these random like the random like cages or like the random like fenced off areas with like the doors and everything, almost like fencing or chain link. And like they have to like pass through those. I'm like, that's not a normal thing you would see in those clubs, I don't feel like. So it kind of blurs those lines between like, okay, we kind of know the reality is like they're in the asylum. And I do like how a lot of scenes are shot where like I think it kept me guessing like, is this like actually like is this like actually like a room she's imagining within the burlesque club, or is it like actually just like straight up a room in the asylum? Because like some of those rooms, some of the settings look like they could just be like straight up be a room in the asylum. Like I feel like
the kitchen for sure.
I was literally about to say the kitchen is a perfect example. That kitchen, I feel like the kitchen pretty much doesn't change between the two settings. I feel like the kitchen is the same between the asylum and the burlesque club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stuff like that. I felt like they did a good job of the setting and like blurring those lines between like the two main settings. But then you also have, you know, she pops into her fantasy. She basically has the inception, the dream within a dream. You know, she imagines she's in this, you know, burlesque club, but then when she performs, she's putting herself into a whole other, you know.
Yeah, and so you kind of have
world.
like 3 degrees of like agency there too, right? So like in the asylum world, it's like she has no agency whatsoever. She's like entirely at the whims of the asylum.
Yeah.
In the burlesque realm, she has the ability to like. It's kind of undecided, right? It's like she has choices she can make that can affect the outcome of like what it is, her situation. And then there's the like purely fantasy world where she is empowered. It's almost like an anime. Like straight up that first fantasy she has where it's her showing up at like the dojo and being given weapons and being like, yeah, you got to fight, defend yourself. Yeah. That is a world like of complete and total empowerment. So you have like these 3 different degrees of agency that you're working with within the film. And I think that the way they straddle those 3 is pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially because they tell you how the movie's going to end from the very beginning. The play ends with the lobotomy scene and Sweet Pea taking off the wig and escaping the scene, right?
Yeah.
Very, very interesting storytelling there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then, something else I noticed. Well, I just want to kind of like talk about the critical response here for a moment. I just have this pulled up on Wikipedia. So Rotten Tomatoes says that like 22% of critics have given it a positive review. Metacritic has a 33 out of 100. Somewhat interesting here. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B- on an A+ to F scale. Kind of close to home here. Orlando Sentinel gave the movie 1 out of 4 stars, calling it a, quote, an unerotic, unthrilling, erotic thriller in the video game mold. Another guy wrote, with its quest to retrieve magical totems, clearly demarcated levels, and non-stop action, Snyder's clattering concoction sometimes feels less like a movie than an extended, elaborate trailer for its redundant video game adaptation. Sydney Morning Herald called the film incredibly ambitious.
Yeah, I feel like you're missing the mark at that point if you're just being like, oh yeah, it's just like taking shit from video games, and they're going to find these like magic idols or items throughout this movie. It's very much, it's taking and disguising their entire plot to escape as like these elaborate fantasies that she has while she's performing to distract people so that they can gather the items to, fulfill this plot.
Yeah, some of the better ones here on Wikipedia talking about it. This Keith Ulett guy from Time Out New York named Sucker Punch the 10th best title of 2011, saying this excessive digisatire spits in the face of fanboys and their franchises. Sonny Bunch hailed the movie as a, quote, exciting, entertaining piece of work, one that subverts your expectations even as it plays to your presumptions. Yeah, I think that part right there is what it does. Like, it's an exciting, entertaining piece of work that subverts your expectations even as it plays to your presumptions. I think that is a very intuitive read into this movie. Precisely because, like, as I'm watching it, I'm sitting there like, okay, this is a primarily female cast, right? Where the villains are male, right? Stepfather is evil.
Kind of the initial,
we'll just stop there at evil.
Yeah, Stepfather's the initial villain we're introduced to, who's just a piece of shit.
Is it Oscar Isaac, right?
Yep, Oscar Isaac is our orderly.
Oscar Isaac, not a good guy.
Blue.
The cook, not a good guy.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the film portrays the high roller / the lobotomist doctor, because it kind of refrains from making him good or evil.
Yeah.
I will say this movie this version of the movie that we watched, the R1, the extended one, kind of spells it out a little bit more, because that whole last scene with him, after she helps Sweet Pea escape, and then there's like the scene with him and her in the room.
Yeah.
That was not in the original film. It just cut to the, like that after hammer knock scene where he's like, what the hell? Did you see that? That look she gave me, like, right before the end there? That was kind of weird. Yeah, so that wasn't in there. The first musical scene in this one was also not in the original. So the, what song was that? Like, Your Love Is My Drug or something like that?
Yeah, what? Love is the drug.
Love is the drug. That wasn't in there. That's also very interesting because a lot of the empowering scenes take place during performances. So in this version, the first performance to be like an entirely raunchy, like not in their control, very like contrived dance theater sequence, where it's not their dances, it's someone else's moves. I found that very interesting. Because the next time you see a dance sequence, it is Baby Doll doing her first fantasy empowerment scene, where she receives the weapons and she gets the message there of like, you have everything you need already. And what does she do? She defeats these 3 like Oni demon samurai, basically. Who I think are supposed to represent her like inner demons, Yeah. And like that self-empowerment is what leads her to be able to empower the team, which is what happens in the next sort of empowerment scene, is they're all a team working together. And if you notice in all of those like fantasy scenes, the things that they have in each one always gets like added to. So by the time you get to the final one, like Sweet Pea still has like the broadsword on her back from the one before that when they were fighting like orcs and dragons and shit. I thought that was really interesting because as far as character development goes, it's not like you just have the same character going through different scenes and they don't change or anything. It's like the hardships that you go through are being built upon, and they all become stronger for it, you know?
Yeah.
That's just like a minor detail too. There's a lot of minor details in this movie that I think in the long run, if you're not looking for them, end up just being overlooked. But whenever like you're really digging into the movie, I think it leads you into appreciating the storytelling, uh, the characters, the different levels of plot. Like it's a very layered movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like eating a cake, you know, where there's a bunch of levels, bunch of layers, and you have to kind of like, you can appreciate the whole thing in one bite, but you can also like sit there and pick through the layers and appreciate like the individual components that went into it to make it a lot better.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like a lot of people just took the first bite of cake and went, oh, this is too rich. Like, this is kind of gross. There's too many flavors going on here.
Yeah.
I will say, the movie does suffer a little bit from the Snyderisms. Some of the slow motion sequences are quite over the top.
Yeah.
I think that absolutely contributes to people calling it what was that quote earlier? In the video game mold.
Yeah.
But I'll say this too. I've gotten in the habit recently of like counting how long scenes are. So like how quickly they're cutting. This movie has a lot of really long scenes, and when I say really long, it's probably not going to sound too long, but like considering that the average scene length in movies nowadays is about 3 seconds, this movie had a number of scenes that were 15 to like 20 seconds long. Some of the scenes in this, some of the like transition scenes, without cuts, but like they clearly go into like digital stuff. Some of those scenes were like up to a minute long.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting. As far as like how does that affect the pacing of this movie, I don't know. I feel like it amps up when it needs to and it comes down when it needs to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I'd agree.
I didn't feel like it was a poorly paced movie.
No, I thought it was paced very well.
Yeah. I think it drags a little bit in the final act, but I think that's pretty standard for things that are like kind of tragedies. Like the ending of this movie isn't entirely tragic, but it's like coupled tragedy and triumph, and one kind of like they tell you is going to happen in the beginning of the movie. But for it being like a fairly tragic ending where the character that you're kind of led to believe is the main character ends up having to make this sacrifice, and this other character is the one who like benefits from it.
Yeah.
I think that taking the time to spell that out definitely did this extended version a service, whereas I think in the original one it just kind of like felt rushed and a little more depressing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So reading through more of the critical response here, it seems like this movie got a drew criticism for its depiction of women. Several critics described the film as misogynistic, and others expressed concern over its treatment of sexual violence. How do you feel like the movie handled that?
I don't feel like that at all. I feel like you could point to a ton of other movies that are just like more sexualized around that time. Like, I don't know. I feel like even their outfits were like fairly kind of like modest. Even like for the time, like this is only 2011 we're talking about. Like, I don't know. I feel like there was much raunchier stuff or like fan servicey stuff that was going on. I don't think that's what they were aiming for at all with this.
Yeah. Listen to this quote. A.O. Scott of the New York Times described the film as a fantasia of misogyny that pretends to be a feminist fable of empowerment, and found that the film's treatment of sexual violence was problematic and believes the target audience as a whole is in favor of it. Would you say at any point that you're like in favor of the sexual violence in this? Because I would say like absolutely not.
No. I feel like this movie does a good job of portraying. I like how they're saying it's misogynist, but I feel like this does a good job of portraying like the actually like how like the evils of misogyny and how bad it is. Like how there are men out there, like the Orderly, a man in power taking advantage of these mentally ill women. You know, the stepfather who's obviously, you know, abusive and like doing these things, you know, someone who is a parental figure abusing his power.
In particular, we can just talk about that for a moment. Like you said, potentially in some way, it's kind of implied that like he led to the mother's death, be that poison or whatever, or maybe she was just sick and he like tried to latch onto her to get the inheritance. But whenever he finds out that it's not been left to him, it's been left to her two daughters, what does he immediately try to do? Go rape the daughters.
Yeah.
Presumably to get one of them pregnant so that he has a claim to the land or the property or the fortune or whatever's going on there.
Yeah.
Like, entirely evil. And at no point would I ever say that I was like rooting. What the fuck was that quote? At no point was I ever in favor of the sexual violence. Like, the one girl looks like she's like 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
No fucking way would you ever want. I mean, even Baby Doll is like 20 years old, and you're like, no, get out of there. Like, yeah. Scratch his face, go find the gun. Like, fucking shoot this dude.
And it's, I mean, it's very clear that these are portrayed as the evil people. These are portrayed as the, you know, the perpetrators of the film. So it's like, I feel like at no point is it, you know, is it portraying, is it glorifying any sort of like sexual violence towards women? I feel like it is showing the evils of it.
One of the most triumphant moments of the movie is when you think that fucking Blue is gonna rape Baby Doll, and she pulls the knife out from under the cabinet or whatever and stabs him in the fucking shoulder, and you're like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them. It seems like a lot of critics kind of miss the punch. I feel like they're trying to just be like, oh, he casted a bunch of women and clothed them scantily in order to like fan service or you know, with ill intention. I'm like, no, I think the point of this is like you have your two main characters who are both female. Obviously, they're going to be sent to like a female asylum, an all-female asylum, and it's like at that point you're also working to paint this parallel between the asylum and like a burlesque club / brothel that they're all working in. So I feel like if anything, he was like Zack Snyder and the costuming were more modest than they could have been. Like they could have gone more over the top and sexualized it even more. And I feel like they stayed fairly modest as far as a lot of it went.
Here's a quote from Snyder himself on this topic. In retrospect, Snyder said, "I'm always shocked that it was so badly misunderstood. I always said that it was a commentary on sexism and geek culture. Someone would ask me, why did you film the girls this way? And I'd say, well, you did. Sucker Punch is a fuck you to a lot of people who will watch it. Which, I mean, I would agree with.
I was going to say, I feel like, and this is something I think we, honestly, you could even say this movie was ahead of its time, because I feel like we have this culture now of these coomers and these incels online that want to be like, oh, all women are sluts and whores, and if they have an OnlyFans, they're terrible. They're never going to find a man. They don't, women don't deserve love. And at the same time, they're the dudes going and paying for the OnlyFans and jerking off. And, like, they want to sexualize these women, but also, like, talk shit and talk down on them. Like, if they're making a buck off of sex work or doing whatever. So it's like, I feel like this was a little bit ahead of its time in that regard, because I feel like that's kind of what this is aimed at. It's aimed at that kind of, like, some of these dudes who do that. They'll, like, sexualize women, but at the same time, like, talk down on them.
Yeah. Here's another couple interesting quotes. Patrick Bromley of DVD Verdict posited that Sucker Punch uses the, quote, prism of popular culture to say something about the roles that women find themselves forced into, and not just in the fantasies of geeks and fanboys. Bromley further judged that the film is a, quote, about fighting a losing battle, about using every tool at your disposal, be it sexuality or physical strength or wit, or the ability to band together and fight a common enemy. The tool of the sisterhood, and about how that still isn't enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty good description.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
Is them empowering themselves and then empowering each other, and then it still not being enough, and how, like, only one of them is able to get out and actually presumably lead a decent life.
Yeah. I'd also like to talk about the angel, the wise man, I believe is his actual title, but people say he's like God or an angel or some sort of otherworldly entity, because he appears in these dreams, and then right at the very end appears as the bus driver who, goes above and beyond to make sure Sweet Pea successfully flees the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, after the movie, I was like, okay, let me see if what I'm thinking is like correct. And there was kind of like a Reddit post. I'm like, yeah, it's not very clear who he is, but you could assume he's some sort of, force for good. Yeah, essentially a guardian angel.
Opens up on.
Yeah, that is, that was when I looked it up and I read that Reddit post. I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense, because they did bring it back to, like, oh, the guardian angel, and she basically, specifically, and explicitly states it right there, could be an old man. And so it's like...
Yeah, well, she has multiple guardian angels in this movie, right? She's got Baby Doll, and she has this old man.
Yeah. I feel like, even to an extent, maybe not a guardian angel, but the doctor did seem like Dr. Gorski did seem like she had the all of the girls' like best interest at heart. To the point where she was the one who, when we flash back post lobotomy, we get her recognizing that obviously Blue has been counterfeiting her signature in order to.
I want to talk about that scene with John Hamm where him and Baby Doll are in the room together and they're talking, and he's not sitting there like, yeah, I want like one pure moment of like perfect ecstasy or something. It's just like, yeah, I just want truth. And then like that being a line that fits in both worlds, and then that happens, flashes back to the other one. They're in the asylum. He starts looking through the records or whatever, and Dr. Gorski's there, and she's like, oh no, I don't agree with this method whatsoever. Like, I believe that you can always be healed, which I think is a really good message.
Yeah.
A very good message to get from this movie is that you can always come back from pain. But like that that moment of, how did they phrase it before? Perfect victory and ultimate sacrifice or something like that. Flawless. Perfect victory, flawless sacrifice? I don't know. Like her death being the thing that probably brings about change to this entire system.
Yeah.
I think that's like a really really encapsulates like the sacrificial hero, you know. B, the fact that like this victory for her brings about like multiple victories. Like Sweet Pea gets to live her life. This system is probably going to be changed because of this, and as history has shown, is. But also allows her, and this is the part where you could probably debate it, but like in her own way, to escape the pain that she brought on herself by accidentally shooting her sister. Yeah. I forget how I got on that, but I don't know. I just
I found that dialogue, and I guess I didn't. I think I also didn't recognize the High Roller as the Doctor initially until it flips back. But I found that dialogue to be very interesting. That he carries out with her. And yeah, that I think was the most surprising cut, is like them having that conversation. It just cuts to the tap, essentially.
Yeah.
I think it was a movie that dealt with some heavy stuff, but in a very well done, well thought out, and entertaining way.
Yeah.
And I think again, I stand by my my original statement that I think some people are just too stupid. Some of these critics are too stupid to recognize and appreciate it. Like, when I sit on here and I read Rotten Tomato reviews and someone says it Snyder likes to think that his Russian nesting doll of a concept is enough to excuse its hollow center. I'm like, I don't feel like I feel like there was no hollow center. There was a lot to unpack there when you really dive into it.
Yeah,
that's William Goss from film.com. So if William Goss, if you're listening to this, you missed the mark on your review from June 29th, 2011 on A Sucker Punch. I'm sorry. I can't take your opinion seriously. Especially when you gave a 65% to Pitch Perfect 2.
Mark Monitor. Domain for sale, film.com. Oh, Jesus. All right, so I think we agree that like this movie is underappreciated. We've already kind of talked about some of the visuals of the asylum and the brothel. The fantasy scenes, though, I think are where this like really excels. Like, the like anime fight scene between her and the samurai is fucking awesome. The concept of like, I mean, all of this is coupled with very good music, but like the second giant samurai like walking in with a fucking rocket launcher and a minigun is awesome.
Yeah.
And then you get to that final one that's like still standing in the yard and it's snowing and like there's lots of dark shadows and oh yeah, coupled with when she slashes them, like bright light comes out of them. But yeah, you get like that classic samurai showdown scene of them rushing at each other and then one falls. Oh man, that's just a cool scene.
Yeah.
But then the second one, where it's like World War One destroyed city in France with like you've got
And the trenches.
yeah, you've got the trenches, you've got the like bombed out not monastery, what would you call it? Like cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
You got the zeppelins, you've got the planes.
Well, I also like what they did with the with the opposition, essentially the Nazi soldiers, where they are
pre-Nazis, but yeah.
Or sorry, the pre-Nazi soldiers, where they're essentially like these like steam, like
clockwork zombies, steam-powered clockwork zombies. Yeah, that's fucking awesome.
An incredibly unique idea,
And you couple all that with giving one of the characters a fucking like hyper-futuristic mech.
Yeah,
that's just fucking cool. Like that's straight out of an anime.
And I really I appreciated, like, they did that, and like the effects, like as she's like running through and shooting, like these dudes are like, they just like essentially spring a leak, like you see like the steam just bursting from them as she's shooting them.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really cool effect that they added into this.
And something that happens in that scene is that one of the tricks that she used on the samurai doesn't work anymore. So she does that like spinning jump over the blade, but when she tries to do that to the German general or whoever that guy is, she goes to spin over his blade and he just fucking kicks her through a post.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, you have to keep growing, you have to keep changing to get past like new difficulties and things. Like, you can't just keep using the same trick over and over. Tiny detail that's probably overlooked by a lot of people.
Yeah.
You also have like the messenger guy that's very clearly not a clockwork steam powered zombie guy who they let live.
Yeah.
Like they don't kill him in the end. Interesting. That's just an interesting detail. Which one comes after that? Is that the dragon scene? Yeah, it'd be fire. So then you get this scene that's like straight out of Warhammer Fantasy. It looks like a siege in the Chaos Waste. You've got like vampires. What the fuck am I saying? You've got volcanoes erupting in the background. You have this like elven-looking citadel that's occupied by orcs, and you have these like heavy metal knights outside that are like beating the door down. That's just fucking cool. And then you couple that with like they show up in like a B-52 bomber with a fucking minigun out the side, and I don't know. I love all of these little like fantasy scenes that they do because they're so
very
out
unique.
there. Yeah, and very unique, because I feel like you haven't seen those types of things in movies a lot of the time.
No.
I mean, they show up into that scene and it's a siege, and they like drop in and then they're like shooting everyone with automatic weapons, but then they do pull out like swords and stuff, and everyone's got their own shit too. So like Rocket takes one of the orc swords and is like hacking at them. Sweet Pea has the fucking broadsword. Baby Doll still using the katana and like 45. Very fun scenes. And then the last one is them on the train.
Yeah.
And you've got the, like, what does he call them? Mechanized gunmen, I believe. You've got these, like, hyper-futuristic, mirrored robot guys that are... I mean, there's a whole train scene fight. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I think the only movie with a better train scene fight is probably Snowpiercer, when they're going through the dark and like they open the door and all the dudes are standing there in like butcher gear, and they take the fish and just start like dipping their axe blade in its blood and passing the fish along.
Dude,
That's a fucking cold scene.
Snowpiercer is a great, severely underrated movie. I also believe.
I don't know if I'd say, because I feel like I don't know anyone who saw Snowpiercer and was like, that movie sucked. I just think that a lot of people haven't seen it.
Yeah. You know what? To be fair, I guess I for some reason I thought it got lower ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 94 from critics and a 73 from audience. I'm gonna say audience is on the wrong on this. I love that movie.
I like it. It's just kind of bleak.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, back to it. So yeah, you have the train scene.
Like, the visuals of this movie are like just incredible, in my opinion. Going back to what you said, like set design, very good. The action sequences, I think, are very good, and coupled with these like fantasy scenes, where it like goes beyond realistic into like full-on anime fantasy type stuff. I think that's like a really good pairing.
Yeah.
I just keep putting my hands up and going like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like I would recommend this movie to just about anyone, and a lot of people would probably not get it.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's a movie to have someone watch and then discuss, or like talk to them about it. Because I feel like if you can either sit down with them and watch the movie, or at least have a discussion about it later, I feel like, you know, pointing out some of those things, those nuances, like I think it brings a whole new dimension to the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kind of like that review you were reading, Zack Snyder's Russian nesting egg. Like,
yeah,
clearly it's someone. Like, you just really wonder, like, what was your hang up with this movie? Like, what did you find empty about it? Because, like, I think that it's a very empowering movie, not just for women, but for anyone watching this.
Yeah.
It kind of asserts a lot of, like, good values, you know? Like, empower yourself, empower those around you, seek to undermine institutions or individuals who are abusing power, you know?
Yeah. As I say, I don't know how you look at this and go, there's not enough, or it's a hollow center. I feel like, if anything, I could more so understand the argument that there's too much going on. That it's a lot. So, like, yeah, I don't really get that. I don't really get that assessment, but I would give this a solid 8 out of 10.
I'm gonna give it an 8.9.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. I think it kind of hits all of the like necessary aspects of like good filmmaking. So like script, the story itself, I think is good. The dialogue, I think, is good. The layers of plot, I think, is good. Keeping in your audience wondering like which of these is real. I think that's good.
Deducting points for the slow-mo.
Yeah, I'm taking 1.1 off of the complete score of 10 for just the egregious slow-mo. I get why he does it, but like, oh my god, dude, he's gotta chill out with that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well,
you got anything else?
I guess that's about it.
I don't think I have anything else. I didn't really. I was in Dallas the whole weekend.
Oh yeah.
So I got
this past weekend.
This
past weekend was New Year's. I hung out with family.
Yeah, I went and saw that boy Skrillex.
Oh wow.
So,
I mean,
him amongst a bunch of other people, but he was the main one on my list to eventually see, and I finally got to see him.
Was it everything you hoped for, seeing that little guy up on stage?
Not really.
Did he look even smaller up on stage?
We were like kind of far up, and it got to a point where like Casey and I just like looked at each other. We were like, "Do you want to just like move back?" And we ended up going to a different set because like there were like multiple stages going on at the same time. So we went over to a different set and saw AC Slater, who's like more like bass house music. But we like we left because we were just like pretty far up front. We were like, people were just filtering in, and like just people just push through the crowd. And it's just like, it starts getting so crowded up there, and it's just like, at some point, you're just like, I feel like this is something people expect me to do or like be at, and not somewhere I want to be. Like, what's the point of me like being here to enjoy the music if I have no space, like no personal space to move around?
Yeah. Is there much moshing going on at those?
Not, I wouldn't say Skrillex, but some of the other ones, like you have like Sullivan King, who like infuses like metal.
Mm-hmm.
And like he definitely like he does like all the vocals. He like does like screaming vocals and everything. You definitely get like mosh pits with that, and then like I don't know if did you know Shaq's a DJ, a dubstep DJ?
Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaquille O'Neal, yeah. If you look up
big
Diesel
man himself,
yeah, DJ Diesel. He he just goes around to all the festivals and plays shows, and he just like he produces his own music. He got taught from a couple DJs, like dubstep DJs. So like now he does his own sets or whatever. But he like people mosh at his sets. He actually one festival he got down from the stage and like got in the mosh pit with people. And I'm like, that would be a terrifying mosh pit to be in with that man.
I don't know, dude. I used to fucking love the mosh pits where it was like just a bunch of guys that were bigger than you. Like I remember at a Warped Tour one year, I ran into some friends I knew, and they were like, "Yeah, we're here to see Riff Raff."
Oh my god!
So I went and watched Riff Raff with them, and he opened his set to this like real sludgy kind of song. And there was just a bunch of dudes moshing, and a lot of them were like big guys, like my height or taller. But like, I mean, you know me, I'm a thin man. Just a lot of like heavy set dudes moshing. But I'm tall enough that I know like if I'm swinging my arms, I'm not gonna get hit. I'm gonna hit them before they hit me, right?
Yeah, you got more reach.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So like I'm never scared in mosh pits.
Yeah.
Because I've got the protective barrier of range, but
that's fair.
Yeah, I also, if they're bigger than you, you can hit them harder than they can hit you. So
true, yeah. But that was pretty much. Oh, I had. Did you? I didn't get a chance to say. We went to probably the best hot pot and Korean barbecue place I've ever been to.
I saw your Instagram pictures. Yeah.
Dude, that place, it's like however they like, first, so it was $35 all you can eat for both hot pot and Korean barbecue. Pretty good deal. I ate my fill and then some. Like, I was so fucking stuffed after that. But like, they had like this miso pork belly that had like was just like marinated in like the miso like rub they put on it, like marinated in it. Dude, it had such a good like nice flavor to it.
Yeah.
Had that on the grill. I did some kimchi hot pot.
Every time I go to a soup place, my next pee takes me like 6 minutes. I'm just sitting on the toilet like, is this ever gonna end?
Yeah. No, it was pretty. I mean, it's like really new. So like compared to the one we did for your birthday in Orlando.
That was Shelby's birthday.
Or that was Shelby's birthday. The one we did for Shelby's birthday in Orlando, this place was probably like triple the size. They had so many, and like even then, there was still like an hour wait to get a table. But they didn't do like, unlike the place in Orlando, they didn't do reservations. It was all first come first serve there because they're just like so new and people are like rushing to get in there.
Yeah,
it was cool though.
Sucked for us if that place in Orlando had been like that since fucking someone was 45 minutes late.
Hey, that was on Michael because V got drunk at her brunch or whatever, and Michael had to go pick her up, and then he was late. I was trying to like get out the fucking door. That was on him.
Y'all knowing we gotta drive through Orlando.
I know. I was giving him so much shit. I was like, dude.
And then the little Asian guy kept coming over and be like, "Oh, they're gonna be here soon?" And I was like, "I don't know, but yeah, they keep telling us they're gonna be here soon." He was getting so mad at us because of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was getting ready to fight him. Stop yelling at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you guys showed up and I was mad at you guys. I was like, "You fucking got this guy pissed off at me because of you guys."
I'm pretty sure I wasn't trying to blame Michael at that moment, but that was definitely Michael's fault. But by extension, it was V's fault because she doesn't know how to handle her liquor or moderate during brunch.
I mean, what do you expect when you're dating a little baby? Tiny little baby. Freshly 21-year-old.
Yeah.
We're too old for that. Too
Hot
old. I'll tell you what, though. Padre's house, New Year's Eve.
Yeah?
He was like, "What do you want to drink? We got all this." And he points at all the bottles of alcohol that are out on the kitchen counter. And I go, "I don't want any of that. Don't you have some scotch somewhere?" And he goes, "Scotch? Yeah, I've got a couple bottles of scotch." So we ended up having like a 12-year scotch, me and him. And my little brother was actually there too, which you might know this, but he's my half brother. So he's my brother on my mom's side. So he was at my dad's house.
Oh my god.
And it was kind of funny, just like all of us getting drunk and complaining about my mom.
Oh yeah, that's too funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's over in Germany now, talking about all these girls he's meeting over there.
Right, he just decided to go to Germany?
Nah, he's there for work.
Ah, nice. Wait, your dad or your brother?
My half brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was telling us like these German pickup lines he would use, because he doesn't like really know German. He just knows like a little bit, you know. And then he tries to like transition the conversation to English. Was basically what he was saying his strategy was. So he'd be like,
pretty good.
I cringed every time he said one.
Shit. Nice.
Yeah, he also said that like most of the German people he meets just like they are standoffish and rude. And I was like, well, I would be too if some fucking foreigner was trying to talk to me in a bar. That's not true. If I hear someone speaking German, I go, "My people? Hello?" Flashback to Matt's wedding. I only talked to the German girl for the entire time.
Yeah.
Anyway, no one wants to hear this shit. If you listen to this far, you're a fucking champion. We've got social media.
Yeah. We are on Twitter /X at BedPipesPod.
If you want to email us a film recommendation or a question or ask us how we wipe, you can do that at cryptidworksofficial@gmail.com. If you, for some unhinged reason, wanted to support this nonsense financially, you can do that at patreon.com/badpipespodcast. And music, as always, by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.
Give him a listen. Yeah, pretty much think that's everything.
All right, boys. Kiss your dog good night and hello for me.
Bye.
Bye.